This is the 20th season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, AFTCO, Pro Guide Batteries, Spro, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning, and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL, Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk bass fishing. We have a lot to talk about today. We have the first day of competition for the MLF Bass Pro Tour on a very chilly Santee Cooper. We also are wrapping up practice for the Bassmaster Elite Series on Toledo Bend, two historic fisheries in Toledo Bend and Santee Cooper. And then we're going to talk to someone who's on Kentucky Lake. So let's just do a 3 for 3. I would say of all time, 3 of the top 5 fisheries that there are in tournament fishing. Today is the Bassmaster Open EQ Lake Ouachita recap show, one of the most popular features on BTL. And this year we're going to alternate between Tristan McCormick and Dakota Ebear, who are going to break down after each open their performances. We got Tristan on for the first 2. Dakota is practicing for the Toyota series on Rayburn currently. And then in the second half of the show, a new feature on BTL prior to each Elite Series tournament. Jonny Schultz from Fish the Moment will come on and statistically break down how the Elite Series tournament should go down on that fishery. So he's got all sorts of data. He sent me a PDF PowerPoint presentation. So he's going to jump on in the second half of the show, and we are going to break down what should go down at Toledo Bend for the opener in the Bassmaster Elite Series. Also, if you guys are looking for fantasy fishing information, Andrew Upshaw's Open Pros Pick'em Show went live on the Andrew Upshaw YouTube channel. Andrew, myself, Ish, and Todd Castledine with our picks, so a popular show back there. All right. I like having guys on the water during the show, but I also feel bad, especially when they're biting, because they're sitting there going, dude, let's get done with the podcast so we can get back to catching fish, but they're doing the professional thing. That is Tristan McCormick this morning. Tristan, thanks for jumping on BTL. Man, you stay on the water, bro.
Yeah, man, we're out here on the home pond, Kentucky Lake, and we got a BFL coming up this weekend. So with a little gap between Ouachita and Santee Cooper, I decided to hop into BFL and hopefully snatch up a couple smallmouth here on Kentucky Lake. And Matt, I tell you what, Kentucky Lake is slowly coming back. It's on the rise. We talked a little bit before the show that Kentucky Lake's mainly becoming a big smallmouth fishery, and it's just incredible to see a couple years ago the transition of it was terrible a couple years ago. Now it's slowly starting to come back and seeing life back in the lake, so that's always awesome.
Do you think that was a cyclical thing with the lake? Was there anything specific? Was it lack of grass? Was it 100% the Asian carp? I mean, you have a pretty good pulse on that pond. What do you think it was that caused that dip? And then why do you think the resurgence has been primarily with the smallmouth and not with the largemouth like we used to have seen out there?
Well, the biggest thing for me, people don't realize Kentucky Lake is the bottom end of the Tennessee River, so we hold all the water. And, we have a lot of fluctuations. So, and it always happens around the spawn. So
okay,
when that water shoots up, traditionally the fish will go up with it and try to spawn. And then in 2 days, it'll suck dry. So in my opinion, that's the biggest reason why we saw a gap in the last couple of years and why it was so bad, because we lost all that generation of fish, the spawn that we should have had. But the last couple of years, TVA, they've kept the water low. They've kept it around 356, 357. They have allowed, the fish to go up and spawn. So we're seeing a lot of 12, 13, 14 inches, which are the last couple of years of spawn. So, that truly helps. The carp are, I don't think, a big issue. They've learned to live around them. And then, guys fishing for them, they're putting a big hurt and dent in them. So that's always a good thing. But, no grass, that is a big deal. But I don't think within the next 10 years we won't have grass back. I'm sitting out here right now and they're yanking current. It's just so hard when there's so much current. It rips up all the seed if there is anywhere that is growing, and it just shanks it up out of the water. So that's my 2 cents on it, but people have all other sayings about it as well.
It is interesting. Also, the smallmouth. I know a couple guys that fish out there, and they're so pumped at how healthy the smallmouth population is in Kentucky. We also saw that Toyota series last year. I think first and second were all smallmouth, so that's got to be fun too. Like, I don't know anybody who doesn't like to catch TVA smallmouth.
Yeah, exactly. Like that Toyota, the top 10, there was 2 guys in the top 10 that had largemouth, and of course it was Steve and Cole Floyd. They went frogging and doing all kinds of other stupid stuff, but everybody else had smallmouth. So, but no, it was a great event, and the BFL, I'm sure the smallmouth are going to be the same way in this event as well. I mean, they're out here biting, and 18-inch smallmouth right now weighs like 4.5, 5 pounds, so it's incredible how big they are.
Wow. All right. Let's talk Ouachita a little bit. You went 12-15, 13-8, 26-7 for a 41st place finish. Just talk a little bit about your mindset heading into Ouachita.
Yeah, so heading into Ouachita, me and you both, Matt, like clear water. Like to do our deal offshore, and doing a little bit of research, I knew there was a ton of spotted bass in there. And right off the rip, first day of practice, I went out there, put the trolling motor down. They were swimming basically everywhere, and I started catching them. They were 1.5 pounds, 1.75 pounds, and I was like, oh boy, here we go. So I knew right then and there that catching a 2+ pound spot was going to be, in my opinion, pretty hard. So there's got to be creeks, there's got to be pockets where those largemouth are staging up, doing their winter pattern deal. And, that's kind of what I lean towards. And, I got in 2 creeks and found them floating everywhere, and they were all largemouth. So that's just kind of what I rolled with. But, day one had 12-15, and I caught a 3-pound largemouth right off the rip. And I was
wow.
Yeah, I was like, dude, we're going to be good. It was funny because, there was 10 boats in this little pocket where I wanted to start. So here I come, hauling the mail, shut her down right in front of everybody, threw the trolling motor down, and there's 5 of them sitting there floating, dude. I went 5 for 5 on the first 5 casts, and it was my limit right off the got. And, dude, them guys were like, are you freaking kidding me? And I was like, hey, I'm sorry, But after that, I milled around in there, and, I felt weird. Like, I caught 50, 60 fish that day. And, after day one, I had 12-15, and I was like, man, I worked my tail off for this. And, it had me like in 60th place. And we both thought going into this tournament, 13 pounds a day was going to be solid, which, it ended up being. And, but day 2, I was like, I'm going to change something up. And me and Cody Meyer roomed together, and he was like, dude, I caught him in the grass in the last hour. So I was like, I'm going to go start in the grass, day 2. So I rolled up to a place. It was overcast, windy, beautiful conditions. I picked up the new gravel dog from Strike King, threw it out there, and within, 10 minutes, I caught a 4 and 2 threes.
Oh, my gosh.
I was like, now this is what we're talking. So I fished around, and caught a 2.5, and I saw one out there floating. It was like a 1.6. I weighed it. It was a 1.6 spotted bass. And, dude, I could not get rid of that thing for the life of me. So I ended up weighing in a 1.6, and had 13, whatever, had 13.6, 13.8. But dude, if I could have got rid of that spot with even like a 2.5, 2.75 pound largemouth, that would have gained me 10, 15 more places, because that's how tight Ouachita was. And and we both know going to Clearwater reservoirs, everybody's so good at scoping, and that 12 to 15 pound range of a lake. You go to a lake, 12, 15 pounds is really good. Like, it's going to separate, half a pound is going to be several places. So that's what it ended up being. But, all in all, a good event. Got some good points, kind of averaged out that, 78th place finish at Okeechobee. So we're kind of right back on track, just easing underneath the radar.
Was it difficult for you to try to figure out what you wanted to do on Ouachita? Because I had never seen the lake before. It wasn't until I got there that I realized, oh my gosh, this thing has a viable fish population up the river in the mud that you can crank spinnerbait and chatterbait. It's got clear water down south. It's got grass. You can trap in it. You can do all sorts of stuff on this lake. I didn't realize that it would be so multifaceted with so many different options.
See, I didn't either, man. I stuck to the offshore gang. It's just what I love to do. But dude, like, even in practice, like, everybody was out there scoping, and I'm like, okay, that makes me feel good. It's gonna be a scope and derb. And dude, I didn't realize, like, that grass there was crazy. I've never seen grass grow in like 35 feet of water. And they just, you think about it though, those largemouth, like, that is their best all around habitat to live in my opinion. gives them plenty of cover, bait fishes in there, and yada yada yada. But I just stuck with the dang offshore scoping, throwing my little minnow at them, and I didn't realize I didn't even go up the river. I never went past Crystal
Crystal
Creek.
Springs.
Yeah, Crystal Springs, whatever. I never went past there in practice, dude. And I really wish I would have. And me and Cody talked about that last night, and we was like, dude, when we practice, we gotta kind of, because you have so many days. You got 4.5 days. You got to look at the rivers. You got to, look at the dam. You got to look at all aspects of it. But, for me, talk about practice for like how you practice. Like when we have so many days of practice, you just kind of like, moseying around. I'm gonna go over here and fish. But dude, before you know it, that 5 days is up, and you've looked at a quarter of the lake.
That's what I ran into too. I pulled my trolling motor up twice on the first day of practice, and I got off the water and was like, well, I don't know whether that was incredibly productive or incredibly dumb, because I felt like I was fishing new water, but I also kind of got a feel where those fish were floating around out there. But I did the same thing. Like I didn't go up, and we'll talk about what I did, because I think it's crazy. We did the exact opposite things of what we did. But on the Demiki, or the minnow on the jig head, talk a little bit about that exact bait. And do you think the head size was important? Because if you went 5 for 5 in the first morning, I probably went 2 for 30.
So, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I will. I kind of do a little different than everybody else. Everybody's like, I got to get that, light head on there. I'm like, dude, the smallest head I threw all week was a half. I had a half, a 3/4, a 1 ounce, and an 1.25 ounce tied on.
Holy smokes.
So for me, I've seen, East Tennessee type fish and like Cherokee and whatnot, and a lot of other clear, like Table Rock, Clearwater reservoirs, that the faster you get it to them, it's going to be more like a reaction bite. So when you drop a 3/4 on one that's 25 feet below the surface, and that thing's just hauling ass to it, and he sees it, he automatically shoots up to it and bites it right away. Instead of, throwing an 1/8 ounce out there, a quarter, 3/16, whatever it might be, and just kind of letting it float down. And then, of course, you got to think, too, they're swimming. So you got to make that perfect cast, lead them, let it fall down there in front of them, then they'll see it and mosey on up there. But, dude, I'm telling you, if you drop a big one on them, they're dobbing.
That's interesting. That's exactly what I did. I was doing a 3/8. And I was literally opening my bail and letting it go to the fish. And what I figured out in practice was very, very rarely could you get one that came up, followed it, and ate it, or caught one when you were shaking it in the top. It was like half of them didn't care, half of them or a quarter of them, it was like you didn't see it. And then a quarter, or then 10% would react but not eat it, and then 10% would kamikaze it, and they would swim up, they would meet the thing, and you would just see your bait stop falling. But I didn't go even heavier than that. That's an interesting. So you're almost treating it like a jigging spoon or a punching bite or something like that, and then if they didn't react to it, you just go on to the next one, right?
Stroll on.
Wow, an ounce, and you're still throwing that ounce on a spinning rod, huh?
Yep, I got one right here.
All right.
This is a homemade one. You can see how big that head is.
Yeah, is that just a little 1/0 hook that you pour in there?
Yep.
Wow.
So, and of course, baby Z2.
Yep.
Now I like a baby Z2 on a round ball head, because if you guys, whoever scopes out there is watching this, you're trying to make your rig, you put a baby Z2 on a ball head, and you put a baby Z2 on a head like this, like a true Demiki head. Watch it how it falls on scope. When you put the Z2 on a ball head, that thing's just straight down to the bottom. When you put it on, a bigger head, there's a ton of them out there, but it'll spiral down. And in my opinion, I hate that, because I wanted to get down there to them as fast as I can, because everybody knows when they're deep, I always catch them out of 45 to 80 feet. And when they're that deep, you've got to get something to them as fast as you can. So, a 1/2 ounce ball head, a 3/4 ounce ball head on a baby Z2 shoots down there like you've never seen before.
And then, are you able to throw that on a little bit heavier line, or what are we working with for the leader line?
Yeah, so I was just throwing 10-pound contra. I don't think in that instance, like in that type of bite, the line size really don't matter, because it's coming to them so fast. And like I said, they're either going to bite it right off the rip, or you're not going to get a bite and just going to go to the next one. So, I throw 8 to 10. That's all I throw. I don't care if it's muddy. It's just my comfort zone. And at Ouachita, I was throwing 10-pound, and you could hit them a little harder than you could with 8, of course.
It's interesting the different styles that we're starting to develop with the Demiki or the ball head minnow. You're starting to see guys like you were power fishing it. I talked to another angler who finished in the top 30 of this event, and he was throwing like a 3/16 and a quarter and coaxing those deeper fish in. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, oh yeah, I would shake it and I would get it kind of strolling down there, and I'd really have to finesse them, and then they would just come up and bite it. So I think what we're seeing now as this becomes more and more popular are different styles of guys, just like you have different styles of crankers, different styles of flippers, different styles of finesse guys. You're seeing different styles of Demiki rig guys, as far as power, as far as finesse, as far as fishing for active fish, as far as staying in an area or covering water on high bypass until you see fish that are floating high. It's really kind of cool to kind of watch this whole thing evolve before our eyes over the last couple of years.
Yeah, it is. And like I said, you got different jig fishermen, people, everybody fishes a jig different, everybody cranks different, and this is going to be the same way. Everybody's going to scope different, whether, you're pitching a drop shot at them or Demiki. And it's just cool because you can kind of still put your 2 cents in, put your flavor in to, in your mind, think that, okay, I'm producing more bites than this guy in this creek because I'm doing something completely different. So, in the grand scheme of things, that really does help your mindset, because tournament fishing is all about your mind.
Swimbait on a Prairie said, does catching bass that deep kill the fish? And from what I experienced, even the fish that were 30, like they would swim up to eat that bait. So you would have fish go from 50 to 40 or 40 to 20 or 20 to 10. Like I never had any issues with any of my fish. All the ones that I culled swam right back down. My fish swam in the live well. Now they swam at the top, but they were extremely healthy. They felt firm. I'm 100% confident that those fish survived.
Yeah, and I'll throw my 2 cents on that as well. So, you take like me or you, whoever made that comment, you put on scuba gear, can't talk. You put on scuba gear and you go down to the bottom in 50 foot. You're not just going to shoot straight up to the top.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to come up 10 feet, set there, let the pressure, and then 10 feet. But when we pull these fish out of deep water as fast as we do, I fizz every one of them because, I don't want their air bladder to erupt or whatever. And fizzing fish is not bad at all. I think it's the best thing you can do. If you're comfortable with doing it, I think you definitely need to do it. So everyone I caught, you could see their throat in their crushers, their stomach kind of come out, and you just pop them with a needle, and it just sucks it right back down in there. They lay on their side perfectly how they should, and they're fine all day. And, even at the bass tanks, the release tanks, all those guys were popping them. That's just what you got to do. I mean, as deep as we're catching them, it's not bad for them. It's not bad for them to float on their side all day. But, at some point, eventually, that they're going to have to get popped, in my opinion.
Now, I find it interesting. So your tournament was in reverse to my tournament. Day one of the tournament, sunny, slick conditions, warm. I found that the Demiki, the offshore fish, were virtually gone in every area that I had them and incredibly difficult to bite. On the second day, I started off with a 3 and a 2.5 right away, Demiki rigging, but you didn't seem to have any problem getting bit in that sunny slick. Or was that a time of the day where we just associate deep fish floating around, they're going to bite all day, but there was a feeding window early in the morning in that low light before it got tough?
There was definitely a feeding window. As soon as I put the trolling motor down, like the first 15 I threw at, I caught. And, really quick after that, you could, they'd shoot up to it and start trailing it. And, one might bite it halfway back to the boat or whatever, but it definitely did get a little tougher. And there's definitely a bite window scoping, whether you're at Ouachita or anywhere in the country, I think. But, as the slick, calm condition, I don't think that necessarily matters as much, in my opinion, just because it's almost like you're force feeding them. You're trying to get that reaction. So if you throw out enough of them, eventually, you're going to get in a little area where everyone you throw at is going to bite. And then you're going to get another area where you see a bunch and they're just going to follow it and trail it and not bite. I mean, it happens whether it's at 7 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock at night or noon, or if it's sunny or if it's calm or whatever it is. So yeah. That's my 2 cents on it.
The Gravel Dog new crankbait from Strike. It's got like a wart-like bill, but it's a or a Series 4 bill on a square bill body. Is that kind of the?
Yes, so that's necessarily it. And we have two different sizes, the 8s and the 10s. You know, the 10 I could get to run. I was throwing it on 10-pound Contra. I got it to run about 12 to 14 feet. And with that wind, you just get the wind behind you. You can bomb that thing a mile. You know, it's a really, really good throwing crankbait. It works good. It's easy to reel, and man, it just gets bit.
And you caught those in the clear water, or did you run to the mud to catch them cranking?
Clear water, straight across from the ramp.
Yep. Really?
Dude, so, I was still scoping them. So I'd throw that plug out there, and the gravel dog, it wouldn't get in the grass, but it'd be like 5 or 6 foot above it, and dude, you just see them straight up out of the grass and boom. I mean, it was a really, really cool bite.
Okay, so this kind of leads into what I did on day 2. I had a good day 2. I had 16 even, and
Hammer.
Didn't realize till the end of the day that I had an upper 20s bag touching my bait. But same thing that you did. I started out scoping, and I did one of those things where I ended up really close to the bank because I hadn't looked up and I didn't have a co-angler. And when I got to the bank, I saw a group of 3 up there. So I pick up the jerk bait, fire it up there, twitch it, and catch a 2.5. So I had about 13 pounds, but I was like, well, maybe there's something to this. So I was getting real shallow, looking at that grass and just casting a little jerk bait, short cast, because you know how much timber was up there and they were garbage looking banks. But if I could see a little, I could tell there was something around that timber and in the grass. And if you pop that jerk bait, you could get them to come up after it. And you really had to pop it up and really just do. And they would start darting all around it and doing somersaults around it and then eventually get it. So I ended up getting 13 and a half, probably 14 pounds doing that. And 1 out of about 5 or 6 would be like big, like where you could see the tail on the scope. Yeah. And it's only 20 or 30 foot in front of the boat because you're making pitches in that timber. It's, you're sitting in like 12, casting up into like 2 to 4 foot, really odd stuff. And they would do somersaults and I could see their tails. And I finally had one hook it. And it was a 5-pounder. And it was then that I realized, holy cow, all these suckers are bass. So it was wild. Yep. And then on day 1, I had like 8 pounds and I put everything up, tied on a red plug and ran 20 miles up from where I was in the Blakeleys all the way up the middle river until it got muddy and culled everything out in half an hour. Had never been up there, had never even had a plug tied on, nothing. Like I had 8 pounds. I went in one cove and caught a 2-pounder off every single secondary point in the cove and culled out all my spotted bass in 30 minutes at 2:00.
Man, I heard that Blakely Creek was really good. I went in there and played around, but I never got on anything. But it looked really good in there. And like you were saying, the timber, making those short, little short pitches at them on scope with a jerk bait. Zach Burge did that same thing at the first stop at Toledo Bend. I think, yeah, they were at Toledo Bend. And it was kind of the same deal. When you said that, that's kind of what it reminded me of. But man, that stuff's just crazy, man. There's so many different ways to catch them. Like you were jerking, a lot of guys were throwing minnows, and it's kind of just pick your poison type deal, what we said earlier. So, that's super cool.
It is. Looking forward to Santee Cooper. Like I said, BPT is on Santee right now. We're there in a week and a half. You got to be excited to get there. I mean, if you're kind of a big fish guy, you like to muck it up and get shallow, but there's also probably going to be some spinning rods, possibly some forward-facing Sodar in play there. Obviously, some guys who aren't even going to look at their graphs there that'll top 10.
Yeah, I think, looking at the weather, looking at the extended forecast, I think it's really got the potential to be a really good tournament. And, it's kind of going to be the same deal, guys. My buddy's got a giant carp on right now.
I was hearing it.
Yeah, but it's, you can pick your poison. Guys are going to, I'm sure wacky rig around and flip and, throw a rattle trap, jerk bait, that type of stuff. I just think it's going to spread the field out and be a pretty good event.
All right. Anything else before I let you get back to practicing for the BFL this weekend, Tristan?
No, man, I'm just, it's excited. I enjoy doing these BTLs with you, man. And I love talking fishing and, and love teaching it to, you know, the younger generation. And I think that's huge because that's the next group of people that we have coming in the sport. And, you know, the way fishing's leading to right now, you know, it's getting a lot of hate because of all this technology and stuff. But, you know, don't let I'm talking to the younger guys. Don't let that scare you because, you know, this is the 21st century and it's just going to keep evolving and keep getting better. So I'm excited to see what happens here in the next several years.
That's awesome. Like I said, off to a good start this year in the Open EQs, 155 fish in all of them. You're currently in 33rd place with 283. I'm in 39th with 268. So we're kind of playing with fire there. When you look at the top, especially, I know you got guys like your roommate, Cody Meyer, your striking team, Dakota Ebear, who's doing the Kings of Bass. That episode actually dropped a couple days ago from Okeechobee. Is your episode going to be Ouachita?
No, so mine's going to be Okeechobee as well. So,
okay.
So what's happened, you know, they came, the whole team, the whole film crew came to Okeechobee. So we each get a show there. And, so we'll have my episode and Dakota's episode, and then Dakota will be Ouachita, and they'll be with me at Santee Cooper. So it'll be back and forth after. Oh, dude, I can't wait.
That'll be fun. You can follow that on the Kings of Bass YouTube channel. The best stuff, best industry stuff that's going on out there. By far, a lot of investment from Luz and Strike King into the Bassmaster Open EQs this year. So, all right, Tristan, thank you. I appreciate it, man.
All right, appreciate it, Matt. I'll hot you later.
All right, see you. All right, that is Tristan McCormick live from Kentucky Lake. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, I think it's safe to call him the man, the myth, and the legend, especially after we kind of break down this. That would be Jonny Schultz from Fish the Moment and the Deep Dive app, and he is going to take an analytical approach at what should go down at Toledo Bend for the Bassmaster Elite Series opener. This is really cool. If you're those guys who like to dive into the stats, regardless of what sport it is, every sport has all these stats that you could say, you know, the WAR, batting average, so like all this stuff. It doesn't exist in fishing. It totally does now. Jonny is going to blow your mind with this, and he is actually going to do a segment like this before every single Elite Series stop. So we'll have to get one in next week before Lake Fork because they do go back to back, and then it will allow you to watch and break down what is going on the Elite Series tournament. So we're going to take our first break of the show, and when we come back, Jonny Schultz from the Deep Dive app and Fish the Moment breaking down the imminent, I think that's the correct use of the word, the imminent Elite Series tournament that starts on Thursday on Toledo Bend. It's BTL on a Tuesday. We'll be back right after this.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
Everything you need, one legendary brand. Top on Strike King.
I'm the kind of guy that never leaves the house without a pocket knife, and Gamakatsu's come out with the EDC series of knives. EDC stands for everyday carry, so whether you're on the water or off, you can always have it with you. The best thing about it to me is that assisted open feature. With this D2 blade, you've got it right here at your fingertips. So if you can't find your scissors, you need to cut a knot, you need to cut your braid, you've always got it. Make sure you check it out. Never leave home without your Gamakatsu EDC knife.
Born in Japan, using technology, innovation, and precision, Sunline produces the widest selection of fishing lines at the most technologically advanced line factory in the world. Manufactured at the strictest tolerances to produce victories at the highest levels of tournament bass fishing. From household names like Christie, Swindle, and Cruz, to young guns like Cook, Logan, New, and Welcher, they all trust Sunline to take them to the top of the leaderboard. Choose the line that will give you the strength to guarantee your confidence. Sunline.
All right, welcome back, BTL, on a Tuesday. Now let's go to Jonny Schultz. What's up, Johnny?
What's up, Matt? How's it going?
It could be going better. I think I have a transformer box going out, and they're not going to be here till 3. So if I suddenly freeze, you're still live. It happened once before, but you can just keep rolling, and then I'll be back in approximately 2.5 minutes is what the trend seems to be.
Sounds good.
I love Vi broadband. I just don't love whatever's going on that box out there when it was windy. Like Jeffries used to always be like, oh, internet. And I'm like, no, this actually is the internet. Now I feel his pain as to why he was grumpy for the majority of the 13 years that we co-hosted BTL. So what are you up to, man? I saw you've been doing some stuff with some deep dive stuff with the BPT that's going on now. And then also we're going to do a little breakdown of the BPT on Toledo, or the Elite Series on Toledo Bend.
Yeah, it's been great. We've been working with the deep dive team and Major League Fishing to give some analysis during some of the BPT coverage, the live streams, put together a few breakdown videos of the conditions with the water clarity maps, the wind effects maps, things like that. And then actually got on live with JT and Chad the final day to kind of break down what Dustin Connell was doing during that final day of stage 1 for MLF. So really cool stuff, great opportunity there. And then, just continuing to hold down the fort with deep dive, and we got core tackle, we got fish of the moment. So a lot on the plate, not as much fishing as I'd like to be doing, but this is kind of the season where you got to take advantage of all the opportunities with all the tours and stuff. So can fish, I guess, later this summer.
Yeah, you got to ask Chad next time you're on there if he ever gets hot in that wool suit coat that he likes to wear on the BPT set. Dude,
that's the crazy little new set they got going on there. They're like packed in, but it's pretty cool. It
is. All right. Let's get right down to business. You sent me a PDF that I was perusing through. It's 4 or 5 pages, just packed, not with hypothetical information, with, okay, how do you say this? Not hypothetical. It is statistical analysis based on fact, correct?
Correct. Based on top 10 finishes from professional level tournaments over the past 20 years.
All right. We ready for the first page already?
Yeah, let's go for it.
There it is.
Okay. So basically what we got here is the water clarity map in the deep dive app. And what we can see here is that on the left side, we have BPT stage 1, February 3rd. So if you guys watched the MLF tournament that was out there, Dustin Connell, Wheeler, Drew Gill, they were catching them Demiki rigging. And that was the big deal out there. Now, the fish were still kind of in their winter patterns, and the water was pretty stained up across the lake. So if you can see in the kind of mid to upper end of the lake, most of those creeks are blown out with mud. Even on the lower end, the back half of the creeks were really muddy. So there wasn't that much clear water for those anglers to fish in, so it packed them all into those clear water areas. But for the Elite Series event, we have the water clarity map from just a couple days ago on the right side. You can see that the lower end is a lot clearer. There's more clear water in the upper end, and even the backs of the creeks on the upper end are more stained versus dirty. So it should put a lot more of the lake at play. So you might see the field spread out a little bit more than they were during this tournament, which also is going to make the fish maybe slightly harder to find this week, because instead of being concentrated in those clear water areas, you kind of can fish the entirety of the lake, which is a massive fishery.
And this is a prime example. So like this, where my cursor is here on this right arm, that was mud, and then it was stained at the mouth. And if you go over here, it's got really good clarity all the way to the back quarter, where then there's just some stained water instead of incredibly muddy water.
Yeah, and so like in that situation there, that 2 weeks ago, that area may have been really difficult to fish with forward-facing sonar, Demiki rig, stuff like that. So those fish may have been a little bit less pressured. So that could be an area that could be really good this week, just because those fish haven't had as much pressure in the past couple of weeks.
Wow. And then you can really see how it's cleared up on the lower end just in the last couple of weeks.
For sure. So then the next slide, we actually have the creek where Dustin Connell did all of his damage the final day. And again, left side is when Connell was there, right side is during the Elite Series event. And this is the reason why I feel like it's really important to study these macro lake conditions, because just because Connell caught them here 2 weeks ago doesn't mean the tournament's going to get won here this week. And if you look, you can see the water clarity is fairly different. It was pretty clear when Connell was there, and it was one of the few clear creeks on that upper end of the lake. And now on the right side, we can see for the Elite Series event this week, it's stained up.
Oh, that's wild.
It's kind of weird how it's like a very different look to that creek even 2 weeks later.
I wonder why everything's getting clearer, but that creek is putting more color in it.
That is very interesting. One thing I'm thinking is that maybe there's some clear water runoff that comes into that creek because there was some rain the week of that event. And I'm thinking that maybe there was because of the rain, there was clear water runoff here and there hasn't been any rain. So now this creek is kind of normalizing back to its regular stained color versus when the guys were there before with the rain, that creek actually got clear water runoff. So that's kind of an interesting situation.
That is interesting.
So then if we kind of keep rolling down, we can get a look. This is actually the area of the lake where Wheeler, Connell, Wesley Strader, a lot of the top 10 throughout the event were fishing. And this is kind of on the west side, lower end of Toledo Bend. You can see again, that water was a lot more stained on the BPT tournament, but for the elites, it's a lot clearer. This could do two things. One, it could, again, spread those fish out so that maybe instead of them being grouped up just in the mouths of these creeks with all that clear water, they might be pushing back into these creeks, which may actually make it more difficult for those guys who want to do the Demiki style fishing because it's spreading those schools out more rather than compacting them in one area, making it harder to kind of dial in that bite. You may have to go cover more water, which makes you less efficient. So that may play a factor this week where I'm sure there's going to be guys still Demiki rigging and stuff, but it may not be just this like 100% most dominant pattern just based on the conditions.
And that's just because this is when it was dominant a lot. There's a lot more water that those fish could spread out in.
Yep, the clear water's in more of the creeks, so they have more clear water to sit in. And the reason the clear water is helpful with the Demiki rig fishing is because it's a visual technique. You can catch those fish on jerk baits and Alabama rigs and other things when it's more stained, but it's easier to get those fish to commit in the clear water. It's not impossible with the dirty water, but it's just a little bit easier.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's some stats now.
Charts. I love charts, Johnny.
We're in it. So these are actually stats from all of the past top 10 finishes on highland and lowland reservoirs in January and February. No, sorry. This is just lowland reservoirs. Take that back. It's only lowland reservoirs that have the same characteristics as Toledo Bend. So we're talking about the same type of cover, average depth, forage, the water clarity, all these factors. We basically have filtered down our database of over 10,000 patterns just to pull top 10 finishes in the exact lake situation you're finding at Toledo Bend. So in January and February, we can see that the majority of the fish are caught offshore, 67%. We can also see that in January, when the BPT was there, the majority of the fish were in their winter patterns. 84% of the fish were in their winter patterns. But in February now, when the Elite Series event is getting there, 73% are going to be in their pre-spawn patterns. So these fish have probably already been making that transition from winter to pre-spawn, and they're probably closer to the middle of the pre-spawn than they are to the winter time patterns. And when the BPT was there, again, fish were in winter patterns. They were deep. Guys were catching 40, 50, 60 feet of water, schooling on bait with Demiki rigs. But this pre-spawn push is going to open up a lot more patterns and make it a little bit more potentially viable to do things other than Demiki rig fishing to do well in this tournament.
All right. Next,
keep scrolling down. So if we take a look areas of top 10 finishes, this is just for this February time of the year, this pre-spawn pattern. So if you look at pre-spawn patterns back, for the past 25 years on lakes that are like this, that generate top 10 finishes. Offshore, you're dealing with offshore grass and ditches. Up shallower, you're dealing with standing timber in pockets, secondary points, shallow flats. So if you're thinking about the offshore deal, these offshore grass ditches basically are small little drains or ditches, grass on the sides. Fish are going to group up in small little zones in them. There's a million grass ditches on Toledo, but you can pull up in one of these things and you can catch 20 to 25 pounds in one little deal. Now, there are fish that are called standing timber off of hard spots. Deep diving crankbaits could be a player. You know, we have a slide on baits here in a second too, but those sorts of things. But one thing that's very interesting is that the Mickey rig is not a player in the past tournaments with top 10 finishes.
But just because it's so new?
It's so new, and we don't have this last tournament. We don't really have any like pre-spawn Toledo Bend tournaments where the Mickey rig is dominated. But I still feel like because that offshore grass ditch bite is so dominant, I feel like there's going to be a good number of guys that can, especially in a 5-fish format, can catch enough fish in that offshore grass. Just like, you know, Jeremiah Kindy was doing over at Lake OUACHITA.
That was impressive.
Doing Lake OUACHITA. The Mickey rigging was a deal, but the
wasn't
tournament
the deal
in grass. It's the second deal because the grass won. So that's kind of
got one off of stuff he was catching them on when you were like 5, Johnny.
Yeah, I know. He's catching them off the old classic Mr. Bass of Arkansas holes. So then on the shallow side, this is if you go back up real quick, this is kind of like your guy Harold Allen going out there throwing a lizard on stumps and standing timber on shallow flats on Toledo Bend. Like that is that's the deal right there. Classic, you know, Toledo Bend patterns. There's going to be some guy who's flipping shallow laydowns. Now, they might be using live scope to live scope those stumps.
But he's going to be fishing timber and stumps in pockets.
In pockets, flipping, you know, in the stained water. I know that that's a deal right now that's coming on pretty strong behind the scenes on the tour is guys live scoping in 5 feet or less, live scoping trees and stumps, seeing the fish swim around. They pitch their jig, their drop shot, their whatever to those fish on all these stumps. And you can catch 30, 40, 50 fish a day, live scoping shallow areas. So that could be a big player if someone gets in the right little stump flat.
I expect to see at least one old school guy chunking and winding, doing good in a pocket with stumps, staining timber, and a little bit of bank grass, don't you?
I think
at least one. There's got to be one.
I mean, and it's 5-fish format. So, I mean, if you get in the right little pocket and everyone else is out there deep, you can get 25 pounds a day, which, you know, maybe someone's going to freak show it and catch 34 pounds a day for 4 days in a row. But like, you know, if that's not the case, then I think that someone stands a good shot of doing well, even still fishing shallow.
Ready to put it all together?
Yeah. And then last but not least, we got the best baits. So offshore, deep diving jerkbait, deep diving crankbait, Carolina rig. This is going to be deep diving jerkbait over the offshore grass, Carolina rigs on hard spots, edges of grass, deep diving crankbait on the hard spots, shell beds, maybe cranking some standing timber. Other baits that might go really well, especially on the shallower side with like grass or ditches or laydowns. You got chatterbaits, bladed jigs, you know, square bills, shallow diving jerkbaits. So a lot of moving baits. Obviously, this is conditions dependent. You know, if it gets a flat, calm day, maybe you're going to be dealing with more jigs, Texas rigs, things like that. But
like you said, this is pre-Demiki or minnow jig head, however you want to call that, which will start being integrated into the repertoire once there's enough a sample, once there's a size big enough to include it.
Yeah, we just don't have data from that. So
it'd be like having the bladed jig out there in 2007, 2008.
Yep.
When everyone was like, well, it's going to win this tournament, but you know, it hasn't ever won a tournament in the past because no one was throwing it out there in the past.
Yep. And this is all data based on what's happened in top 10 finishes. So it's not necessarily like going to overvalue like one or two events where the Demiki rig was dominant, though we have a feeling it's going to be really dominant. But this is a good sense of like what's been going down.
Is all this information available on the Deep Dive app, or is what you're seeing a little bit behind the scenes of the Deep Dive app that then shows you why and how the suggested baits and patterns come up when you have the Deep Dive app, which is available on either your iTunes store or Google Play?
Yeah, so this is kind of a back-end view that I pull from our database directly. We actually are working on a feature here where we're going to be able to see charts like this, but this is the data that feeds everything that's in the app. So all of the recommended areas, baits, strategies, where to fish, what to throw. This is the data that backs it up. again, a database of over 10,000 tournament patterns collected over 20 years of tournament fishing. And these are actual observed fish catches. This isn't just some guy saying, hey, I caught him on a crankbait on Toledo Bend one time. It's like we see guys actually catching them on live footage doing these things. That's how we're able to get these data. But you can get these water clarity maps that update multiple times a week. You get a 30-day water clarity history on these water clarity maps. We also have the wind effects maps that show you the wind and how that affects your lake. So a really good tool for anglers who are just trying to get a good sense of where to start on their lake before they actually get there. Or if you're struggling when you get to the lake, you can break down your lake using this tournament data, using recommended strategies based on the real-time weather, real-time lake conditions, all the other factors that are kind of hard to put together in your head because there's so much going on. We kind of take care of that for you and take a data-backed approach to say these are the best strategies to be using.
Was it like $120 a year?
So the annual subscription is only $60 a year.
Oh, $60 a year for everything? Like the top of the line, absolutely everything.
Yep. So
I don't know why I thought it was more than that.
So you get a really good deal. If you want to pay for it monthly, then it'll be basically at $100 a year if you want to pay for it by month, but you get a 30-40% discount by paying for it as an annual pro membership. So, go in there. We have lakes all across the country with this data. The wind effects maps are on over 2,500 lakes across the country. We're actually adding a new feature hopefully within the next week or two where you can add your own lake in there. And once you get that added in, you can drop a pin on the map. It automatically pulls this data in. We have a little questionnaire thing we figured out, and then we're going to vet the lakes ourselves too to kind of make sure everything is lined up properly. But trying to get this information to as many lakes and as many people as possible. And it's a really cool tool that we're excited about. Water clarity maps right now, we're also working to expand those. I think we're on like 150 lakes right now with the water clarity maps, and we're trying to get that to up to like 300, if not more lakes going forward. So we're also working on the process of adding new water clarity lakes as we speak.
All right. Give me a let's go through each, give me a winner, like what they win on, what the water clarity is, like the whole thing. Put all this together, put your thinking cap on, and tell me how this thing is going to be dominated. Not even necessarily won, but the majority of guys, when we tune in to Bassmaster Live on Saturday or Sunday, where are they going to be and what are they going to be doing? Or just pick the winner. I don't care, whatever you feel like doing.
So if I had to guess, if this is just my guess, I think it's going to be, there's two primary patterns that I would say could be really, really good. I think one is going to be fishing this kind of mid to upper end of the lake region where the water has started to clear. These fish have received less pressure from other anglers. Local guys are going to see Wheeler and all these guys catching them on the lower end. Those fish are going to get hammered from locals. This upper end deal, there was I think it was Dakota Eber or somebody who was kind of starting to kind of get something figured out up in this upper end. I think it's going to be first half to middle of the creeks, slightly stained water. If you keep scrolling down, I think that the lower end may play a little bit with the Demiki fish, but I think it's going to spread those fish out a little bit too much. There may be a couple guys that are doing that, but I think the two main patterns really are going to be somebody figuring out a grass bite, probably live scoping them in the grass. But I think that someone could find a really good grass bite somewhere. And I think someone else is going to find a really good standing timber stump bite somewhere where they're, again, probably live scoping those fish with a jerk bait, maybe throwing a jig, 5 fish format. All you need to do is get 5 big ones in the boat. I think that's going to be the deal. Maybe people are going to get a little bit overexcited about the Demiki rig deal, and it's going to get, it may get one with the Demiki rig, but I feel like traditionally when one pattern feels so dominant, something else can pop up, just like in, the recent open over at Lake OUACHITA. So that's my guess. I don't know 100% for sure because the Demiki is definitely like a wild card, but those would be my guesses.
Good stuff. All right. That's the Deep Dive app. This stuff doesn't exist, man. Like, you have to go in and do this. It's not like you're just regurgitating information that someone gave to you. Like, you and a team at Deep Dive and investors and all sorts, like, it takes a lot to come up with those 5 slides. Like, you're not just pulling that stuff out of a book. You're actually doing it, which I appreciate so much because I love scouring through and trying to find patterns and things and standings and weights and finishes. So a real cool look. And if you're watching that, it really gives you an idea of what you can be looking for. And that way you're like, holy cow, this is out in left field, or this guy is doing exactly what the statistics say he should be doing.
For sure. Yeah, and it's exciting. We're hoping to get those slides and stuff in. We've or the charts and stuff. We actually have a build we're kind of working on. And you'll get one strolling, no doubts. Tyler's fishing. Okay. Getting other YouTubers here with the counterpoints. I see you, Matt. Strolling. I mean, hopefully it gets one hover strolling on a core tackle hover rig. That would be fantastic.
That was well played.
I would take that any day of the week. Any pros that want to go, throw that hover rig around, let us know. We can get you guys a few of them for your boat. But yeah, that wouldn't be a bad conclusion either.
Look at that. Tackle mogul, statistical analyst, app developer, and overall angler and YouTuber and former tournament fisherman.
Trying our best over here, Matt. We got a lot of pots on the stove, but
someone asked what you did before, and I believe I told them that you forecast how many Oreos people in Asia would eat every year.
It's kind of close. It was forecasting pizza sales at Walmart.
Oh, okay. So, in Asia or United States?
No, U.S. All the U.S.
I don't know how I got Oreos in Asia. So I was somewhat close though.
I mean, yeah, forecasting for sure. But yeah, that's what I did in the past. So it's actually kind of fun because I'm doing a lot of forecasting stuff now with Core Tackle, which is cool. Getting all of the, demand stuff figured out on that side. And then basically what we're doing in the Deep Dive app is forecasting what the fish are going to be doing. So it's the same thing. Fish and people eating pizza is surprised. They have surprising number of similarities. It's kind of interesting. But if you get enough good data, you can kind of start to get a feel for what the anglers are going to be doing, which is pretty cool. We called it pretty well with our last analysis on the Bass Pro Tour Event 1. We did a little preview, and it basically went down exactly how we predicted it in that video. Same thing happened last year with the Toledo Bend tournament too, Matt. We laid the juice out for you. You kind of fumbled the bag on that one a little bit, but other than that,
I totally fumbled the bag on that.
But yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty fun doing these tournament breakdowns and stuff with all the data, and it's cool. We actually have several pros that are going to be using Deep Dive app in some of their YouTube videos and on tour,
which is legal to use. It is all public information.
Correct. Yep. So that's exciting. You're probably going to see some of your favorite YouTubers and Elite Series guys using the Deep Dive app this year. So excited to see that as well.
Is there a lake list Mike wanted to know yet?
Yeah. So let me just double check that on my side. I'm pretty sure right now we just upped our page. Let me double check. Yep. So if you go to deepdiveapp.com and then you can see lakes at the very top of the page. We have a whole lake list. This is kind of our current lake list with all the features. So go to lakes there. So deepdiveapp.com and lakes, and you can see all the features that are on the different lakes.
Water inflow, best areas, tournament patterns, and water clarity.
Yep. So you can see all of that and which lakes we have. We have features supported mainly on our top lakes by usage. We're continuing to expand this out every single week, trying to add more lakes and do new things. So we have a lot of lakes in there already, 2,500 lakes across the U.S. You can also filter by state. So if you want to just go to, Arkansas or Oklahoma or whatever, you can see all these different lakes and allows you to get a good sense for what's happening.
Holy cow, there's a bunch in here already.
Yeah, 2,500 lakes is a lot. So if you fish on your lake, there's a pretty good chance that we have your lake in there. If not, we also, again, are adding a new tool in this week, hopefully, that'll allow you to add your own lake in there. If it's a smaller lake or a lake that, there's a bunch of little tiny lakes around Oklahoma and stuff like that, where you can still get water inflows. You can still get all the other stuff. So every lake is automatically basically equipped with the wind effects and the water inflows feature, plus all the bait recommendations. So you get that on every lake regardless. And then best areas, tournament patterns, and water clarity require a little bit more work on our team side to kind of get those set up per lake. So those are limited to just, a smaller subset of lakes.
Interesting.
For sure.
So yeah, I can go and look on like Lake Marion on Santee Cooper, and it's got everything. So in my open in a, yeah, there you go. Good stuff.
Yeah, and if you guys want to check out some of the deep dive stuff, you can also see us doing breakdowns for the stage 2 of the Bass Pro Tour, Santee Cooper. I'll actually be making videos for that to do recaps of qualifying day 1 for Group A and B, and I'll also be on the live stream with JT and Chad on Sunday, and we'll be doing a little breakdown with them as well, breaking down water clarity, inflows, wind effects, all that stuff, based on what the guys are doing on the BPT.
You enjoy this stuff way too much, Johnny.
It's to the point now, Matt, where I'm doing more of this than I am fishing, and it's very fun. I do miss getting on the lake a little bit, though. I got out the other day for a little bit and was replicating the pattern that Drew Gill was doing on Rayburn on one of the lakes around here, and it's still fun to get out there and take what the pros are doing and learn, and I still love all that stuff, too. So the thing is, I have too many things going on. So
yeah, I mean, I think we've been talking – like I said, I've known you since you were like a 8-year-old kid in a Triton jersey, hanging around the college events and the casting kids stuff. But we've kind of been in contact pretty fairly recent over the past 3 or 4 years, and it's cool watching you going from what you like. Hey, this is what I'm trying to do, to like the rudimentary. Oh, look, like we actually are getting some data in, and we're starting to. Oh, this is actually might work. This is what I want to do, but our engineers don't know how to do it, to now where you can just kind of come in and say like, hey, here it is. This is what I had in my brain 5 years ago that I wanted to know. And now we have that data. So pretty cool.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a long journey. It feels crazy. It's been like 5 years we've been working on this app, but it's definitely a passion project for me. We're going to keep expanding a lot of the tool sets and features. App development takes a lot longer than you would expect, but we're working on it. We're trying to provide value to anglers that's not out there already. Mm-hmm. So the tools you're going to find in Deep Dive are exclusive to Deep Dive. You're not going to find the wind effects maps or these inflow maps or these water clarity maps at the quality, the consistency, and the coverage on any other place on the internet, regardless if it's an app, if it's a website, if it's anything. So it's a really cool tool. And I think that if you take some time to actually look at the data, maybe compare your fishing trips, your locations you're catching fish to what you're seeing in the app, you can gain a lot of great insights from it.
What's tougher, developing an app or trying to run a terminal tackle company in 2024?
Well, I would say that the app is a lot harder. I think we kind of we hit the sweet spot with Core Tackle. Matt and Stefan and I, we kind of got a pretty good deal with the hover rig and the tush right off the bat. We got 2 winners, and there's been a lot of good word of mouth, moving a lot of product, which is really cool. We actually just got expanded distribution over in Dick's Sporting Goods, so that's pretty cool. And we're in a ton of stores all across the country. So that's really been a lot of fun. And the bait design stuff is something I've been doing. My mom told me a story, and I don't really remember this super well, but apparently I was like 9 or 10 years old or 12 or something. I don't remember. And I was over at the Berkeley headquarters where they have the lab. Have you ever seen like where they have
in Spirit Lake, Iowa, or wherever it was? Yeah.
Spirit Lake, Iowa. So I was over there, and they brought me in to do some different things when I was like casting kids champ and stuff. And I was sitting at a board with all the designers, and I started drawing up like this swim jig design. And I drew it up, and apparently I was like, this is the design I want. And I drew it up. And then as soon as I finished drawing it, apparently I erased it. And I'm like, but I'm going to use that idea, so don't take it. This is me when I was 12 years old. And Matt, Stefan, and I have designed that jig, and we're now coming out with it.
No
and
way.
We actually have finished it. And we don't have it up on the website yet. We're going to be launching it here soon. But we actually have the exact jig that I designed back then, basically, almost exactly, from when I was 12 years old. So that jig is basically like 15 years in the making. At this point, it's more than 15, 17 years in the making.
That's very cool. All right. Anything else before we get ready to watch what's about to go down on Toledo Bend and what is currently going down on Santee Cooper?
I have one thing to watch, Matt. I think you'll be interested in this. There's going to be guys who are catching them off cypress trees with forward mode for live scope. And I think that's going to be a really big thing that comes out of maybe this or both tournaments, where guys are scoping in 2 to 5 feet of water for spawning bass with forward mode, not perspective, but with actual forward mode, picking off fish off trees like it's crappie fishing. I know it's going down. I've done it myself a little bit. I haven't had enough time on the water to make it happen, but they're setting the range at like 30 to 50 foot. forward and they're watching these fish and they're just picking them off. So I think that maybe you know something about that, but I think that that's something to be watching. I'm excited to see if that kind of starts getting out in the open. I'm going to be making some videos about it here pretty soon, but I think that could be a little sneaky deal.
Heck yeah. Check out the Deep Dive app on your mobile device. You just look up the Deep Dive app and it pops right up there. $60 a year for all that stuff. If you want to know if your lake is on it, go to Deep Dive app with 2ps.com. Click on the lakes in the top right corner. And then you can separate it by state or your lake, and it'll see what type of layers and information is available for you on the lakes that you fish. And then also over at coretackle.com. That is your company and Matt Steffen's company. Two guys who are on BTL all the time. That's your guys' stuff.
Yep, we're the two owners. So no one else is no one in it. It's just Matt and I, and owned by fishermen, and all the product is made here in the US. Everything is produced here, shipped. Nothing comes from anywhere else. It's just here in the States. So that's pretty cool.
All right, thanks, Johnny. We'll get you on next week. Same thing, different week, different lake. We'll be very interested to see how it goes down on Lake Fork, because I think you should have a lot of data now there for as many times as bass has been there early in the year.
Yeah, it should be pretty fun. There's been several tournaments in that exact time frame, so that should be a really good tournament. There's going to be some really good events these first few tournaments. I think that we're going to see a lot of big fish. I'm excited to see a 5-fish format on some of these Texas lakes compared to every fish counts, because I think that there were some guys who were catching 30-pound bags during the BPT, and it just wasn't really getting seen as a 30-pound bag. So I think there's going to be some hammer bags caught in the next few weeks.
All right, I'll get with you on next week's show.
Sounds good. Talk to you later, Matt.
Thanks, Johnny. All right, that is the one and only Jonny Schultz, who just looks and thinks about fishing differently. There's a lot of bright minds in the sport right now. Like I said, I had just had Drew Gill on the show last week talking about what he was going down. I mean, just even like a Tristan McCormick from this year. I met Tristan in 2019 when he was 19, 20-year-old college kid. We were the only two that were staying at the La Quinta for a Toyota series on Table Rock Lake. And we started chatting. So it's been cool to watch him develop throughout his career. All right, we're going to take our final break of the show. When we come back, break down what's going on the rest of the week, plus an opportunity to come hang out with BTL and the Crappie Chronicles crew and raise some money for St. Jude's and have a chance to win some awesome raffles in the New Prague, Minnesota area, close to the Metro at Giesenbräu Beer Company in New Prague. We'll give all the details on the Break Your PB St. Jude Dick Hiley Bass Classic fundraiser that goes down this Saturday, which I believe is February 24th from 4 to 9 p.m. It is BTL on a Tuesday. We'll be back right after this.
In 2023, we became a household name in the crappie fishing world thanks to Power Breaks, the game changer. Hey, bass fishing world, buckle up, because you're next. It's going to be fun. Welcome to the next evolution of our product line, Power Breaks Sidekick, designed to install right on your shallow water acres. We are the first and only fishing brake company to offer a breakaway system. Just like with the Game Changer, the Power Breaks Sidekick has it as well. And it's not a matter of if you're going to need it, it's when. Power Breaks, the most durable fishing brakes available on the market today. Made right here in the USA with our rock-solid 2-year warranty. Hey, not all fishing brakes are built equally, and you owe it to yourself to find out why ours are different. Power Breaks Sidekick. Order yours today at mypowerbrakes.com. You'll be glad.
Have you considered purchasing new electronics for your rig? The type of mounts you choose to protect your investment should be part of the decision-making process. No matter if you prefer 1, 2, or 3 graphs up front, Beatdown Outdoors has a solution for you. Adjustable, versatile, rigid, and made in the USA. What's your ultimate electronics setup? Check out the full selection of Beatdown Outdoors products by visiting beatdownoutdoors.com.
The Spro Little John crankbait has been around for almost 15 years, and it is one of my go-to crankbaits whenever I need a fish in the boat, so you can never have enough new colors. That's why Spro's coming out with a handful of new colors, including Pearl Shad, which has this bleached out white look, but it's got this pearlescent, really pretty. We've got Copper Shad, which looks amazing in the water. It's got that purple flake on the back, really pops in the water. And then if you want some real pop, we've got Sparkle Shad, nothing but sparkles all over this thing. And then last but not least, we've got the matte Sexy Shad, just a really different looking color for a crankbait. So you want to give them a little different look, that matte Sexy Shad is definitely the one to go with. All these colors are available in the original Little John and the MD.
Having confidence in your tackle while on the water is one of the main things to success, in my opinion. In the last couple of years with Denali, I've had just that. From anything from spinning rods, casting rods, tungsten products, even now to casting and spinning reels, I have the confidence to go out there and get the job done and know that all my equipment is going to handle it and do it just the way I want it. The thing about Denali is you've got great quality products at a great price point, so make sure you check them out.
All right, welcome back, BTL, on a Tuesday. Big shout out to Tristan McCormick taking time away from his practice for the BFL at Kentucky Lake to talk about the Bassmaster Open EQ #2 on Lake Ouachita. And then Jonny Schultz coming on for his pre-Elite Series breakdown, something he's going to do prior to every stop on the Elite Series this season. I mentioned it before the break. I mentioned it. I'll mention it again. The Break Your PB fundraiser, the guys from the Crappie Chronicles, which is like the #1 ice fishing show, and Adam Bartuzek actually, it's funny. So he fished the Toyota Series last year. He got second in that Toyota Series on Kentucky Lake that Tristan and I were talking about during the show. Bart did, but a lot of ice fishing stuff. And then I partner with him because I fish with Adam in the St. Jude Bass Classic, which is going to be a little bit of a rodeo this year since it's the 4th and 5th of May. And we're in Alabama for the 4th Bassmaster Open EQ. So if I don't make the cut, I'll fly Friday night to the Twin Cities, have Adam pick me up, and then fish the 4th and 5th. For the St. Jude Bass Classic. If I do make the cut, he's got to have a partner on standby, but he can't practice with him because I'm technically his partner until I can no longer make it for the first day. So that'll be interesting. But anyway, New Prague, Minnesota, this Saturday, the 24th, 4 to 9 p.m., Gießen Boy Beer Company, BIER, I believe is how they spell it. The Break Your PB fundraiser. $20 suggested donation for the first 50 in the door. You get a commemorative pint. BTL will be giving away a lot of things. Kermit Parsons, I believe. Yes, I think. Let me make sure I got this right. Yes. So Kermit actually did like the engraved Yetis. He did a couple one-of-a-kind St. Jude BTL Yetis that will be up for auction at that event, as well as Denali is donating 2 rods. We got AFCO jackets, we got Sunline packs, and then a ton of stuff from the Crappie Chronicles. So if you guys have any questions, if you want to attend that event, DM me at Matt Pangrac on Instagram, email me at Matt Pangrac or at matt@basszone.com. Those are the 2 best ways to get a hold of me. And then Adam has all the stuff on the Crappie Chronicles YouTube and Facebook page. So, all right. What do we have going on the rest of the week? I know we have something going on the rest of the week. I know. Jody White is on the show tomorrow. All sorts of stuff going down. He is going to talk about the top 10 young anglers coming out of MLF right now. There's all these guys that are winning hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I wouldn't call it like direct negligence, but I just haven't been able to keep up with it. So Jody White, who is the man over there when it comes to statistics, who's hot, the talented anglers over on the MLF side, not only on the BPT, but also in the Toyota Series and the Invitationals. He's going to come on, talk about and break down what's going on over there this year. Then Thursday, Uncle Frank. And then Friday, Guide Day returns. We're going to keep it in the Midwest, a show with Casey Scanlon talking about guiding on probably the busiest recreational traffic lake in the country, which is Lake of the Ozarks. And then some really cool stuff next week as well. So we're trying to keep it. Thanks for sticking with us through the internet fiasco, which should be fixed by tomorrow, based on what I've been told. But that's all we got for today. Thank you, Tristan McCormick. Thank you, Jonny Schultz. We'll talk to everybody tomorrow. See ya.